welcome to night two of AIM Dance Summerfest 2025. My name is Amy Elizabeth, and I am joined tonight by Jamie Williams and Jennifer Salter. And, well, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that we have a very long history of working together, colleagues, and friendship. So I hope that this is more of a conversation for us. And maybe we can throw back a little bit. So throwing back a little bit, let's start by introducing yourself to our audience, a little bit about who you are and how you got to this space today. It can be this free because you want to do it.
Okay. Um, Hello. I'm Jamie Williams. And I submitted an application and it was accepted. No, but Amy and I do go way back. We met when we were in undergrad at Sam Houston State University in the dance program. And I was just a meek little wee one of not very much importance in the Nutcracker. The person who was assigned to do my hair could not be bothered to do my hair, and I had no idea how to do a French twist. And so Amy said, "Baby doll, you need some help with your hair?" And I said, "Yes, please, ma'am." And that same weekend, there was a flyer for an audition for her company, which at the time was Redner's Field Dance Company. And I went to that audition because I thought she was a real nice grown-up person. Who's only a few years older than me, but I was like, she's really got it together. Yeah, I auditioned for the company, found myself in a professional dance company for the first time. I'm happy to say I was a founding member of this great big adventure that she took herself on. And we ended up being in grad school together. And now I'm dance program coordinator at San Jacinto College, and I'm very pleased to continue to have lifelong friends and colleagues. And Jennifer will kind of fill us all in on the rest of
it. So I'm Jennifer Salter, dance professor at San Jacinto College with Jamie in Houston. I was actually here last year for Summerfest. I was invited to be a guest choreographer and work with the company and spent a week creating work, and that was really exciting and fun. So I've done this before. But background and history, our history goes back to 2002 when we met in college. So that was a really long time ago. We went to undergrad together at Sam Houston, and then several years later went to graduate school with Jamie. So we've all known each other for a very long time. Beyond that school relationship, that continued into our personal lives. Amy stood beside me at my wedding 16 years ago. Yeah, so that, we have both personal and working relationships, which makes it extra special when we get to do things like this and spend time together and not just enjoy each other's company, but actually like be creatives together and talk about art, talk about life, and make something and be excited for the things that we're all doing, right? Like presenting work, creating things, but also like for like an entire festival that's produced. We talk about it all year long and listen to all of the frustrations and the stress, and then we get to see it happen, and it's like so magical to see everything unfold and come together. So I think I said what I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, basically what they're saying is that you're kind of the foundation and the pillars of this dance company and of this festival. And the support over the 20 plus years has helped me to get to this chair in this space. Thank you. So thank you for continuing to show up.
We'll think about next year. We're not really sure.
Yeah. Okay. You don't really want to chisel that in yet. So talking about that relationship that we've had, and you two have collaborated on several dance films in the past. But if I'm not mistaken, this is the duet that you're presenting this weekend is the first time that you have officially collaborated on a stage choreographed work on yourselves. Is that true?
Yes.
Yes. So this is a new level in your relationship as colleagues, collaborators, creatives. So can we talk a little bit about that process, expectations, realities?
Yeah, so yes, Jamie and I are like work wives, and over the 10 plus years that we've worked together, we knew each other before then, but I think over that time, working together so closely, we just sort of melted together in such a wonderful way that was very unexpected. We balanced each other out really well. So creating stuff together like dance films, creating stage work and our students seems really natural. We don't always collaborate and create together, but we have several times. With our films, we typically do collaborate and work together. It just seems to be easier. I like to do all of the filming and the technological stuff, and I leave all the creative stuff to Jamie, all the movement stuff. But that works well for us. But yeah, so coming into having a conversation about, maybe we should make something on ourselves. That was really neat. Jamie's going to talk a little bit in a minute about her solo that she's presenting, but something that she wanted to create for herself over the last year and has presented, and it's beautiful. And just watching her do that and being able to like get on the stage again and perform and present work by herself and for herself was kind of inspiring for me. I'm like, I want to do it too. I'm feeling a little left out. So I think I said like, hey, let's make a duet. Like, we create stuff that we feel like is very fluid. We work really well together. Like, I feel like we could create something really quickly and easily that would be a representation of who we are. And the idea, I think, going into it was like, I just want to perform. I just want to get on the stage because we don't have the opportunity to do that much anymore. We're just too busy doing other things. Jamie does a lot of performing in Houston with companies, but I don't really do it that much. So it was a little bit selfish, and I'm over 40. I would love to dance on stage again, but I want to do it in my way and on my time, and I want to create something that feels good in my body. So we just kind of talked about it, and jumping into the studio to start working on it, we had sort of an idea that we talked out, and then it's like, okay, let's just create some phrases and see what happens. I think I was actually really surprised at how quickly we like, I'm going to create this phrase and you're going to work on that, and then let's teach it and let's see how it fits together. And then before you knew it, we had like 3 minutes of a dance. I'm like, oh wow, okay, well, that's cool. I just wasn't expecting that. And it never felt like we had to do a lot of editing just because we're typically on the same page in terms of creating. Like, yep, I agree, this works. Let's move on. Let's keep going. I think this is what I always joke about when we're talking about this duet. The hardest part for me personally was we're so used to creating work on our students who are very like young, athletic, capable, lovely dancers that really challenges them as leaders. And we did that on ourselves, and I don't know why we did that. So in the rehearsal process, and we're running the dance and like halfway finished, and I am just like gassed. I'm like, what are we doing? Why would we do this to ourselves? I think we're just so used to that, and we just created stuff that felt good, not really thinking that we're going to create an 8-minute dance that's going to kill us on stage. But it's okay. It was a really good challenge, and I think like as we continue to perform this, hopefully it will get better, and it will feel better in our bodies, and it won't be so difficult. But yeah, I mean, I'm happy with how that process went and how it turned out. So.
Yeah, no, I agree with a lot of what Jennifer said. And I guess I'll add that sort of in this process, this concept that we were talking about, it kind of was inspired by this poem that Jennifer had read. And now I don't even know where that's at. I think it was on Instagram. It was like a video. Essentially, it felt like us. It felt like our friendship and our working relationship. Vectors is the title of the duet, and it's sort of this imagery of parallel lines and relationships that just kind of come naturally. You are just working alongside each other and picking up each other's slack, and it just works. Um, and then just sort of talking about that concept and what happens when there's a stoppage, when there's a crisis, when there's a jolt that disrupts that relationship, and then how you continue to sort of revolve around that person or stay within their orbit. Um, and so there's a lot of that imagery that we kind of talked a lot about that I think lives within the duet, these linear pathways and these circular pathways, floor patterns, um, uh, that kind of go with that. I think in terms of um, the way that we work together, and I say this all the time, I'm very much a big picture person, and I can dive into something, but I do like to know or have an idea or a thought or a hypothesis of where it might be headed. Um, so before we really dove in, we were listening to music and kind of talking about what the overall arc of this work would look like um, before really diving into the details. And I think as we're getting into the details, we also move so similarly. We have similar timings and flow, and um, we are so like in sync. We'll show up wearing the same outfit, same colors or same color scheme all the time, and just that part of it felt very easy. There wasn't really this push or pull in terms of what decisions need to be made or who's in charge or anything like that. It's very much a very easy, just ongoing conversation that, I think it's still ongoing. I think as we're settling into the work, we're continuing to ask each other questions like, are you really seeing your head here? And, what does this moment feel like for you? A couple of times I've thought about, well, maybe we need to change this part if we both are still really struggling with it. But, we'll continue this ongoing conversation.
Appreciate that it's an ongoing conversation. It's something that has the potential to continue to move forward, just like the relationship does. The two themes came up listening to you guys talk about this process. One is because of the knowledge that I already bring in, and that is the gestures. And then the second one is content and creating work that is relevant to our person. I'm saying these two themes in connection with the duet that was created and this work that was created. I feel that the audience may or may not have seen this silhouette yet, but I have. And there's a strong attention to gestures and to gesture work, and I feel that I find in the duet that same sense of gesture with a combination of more full body flow coming from both of you, and then the context of both the words and being a representation of the relationship which you are currently in, and then the solo, which we'll let you talk more about that. It being so deep and personal. So I guess my question would be the attention to or approach to gesture and how and or why that is utilized in the works. It seems to be a part of the voice, the choreographic voice, and choreographic vision.
It's a great question, and I think I approach it kind of in two ways. Consciously and subconsciously. I think that sometimes, and I'll speak to the solo is titled Stuff, and it's more or less a little sneak peek into the mind or stream of consciousness of my own thoughts. It's my relationship with my own anxieties and fears. And it's also visually represented by a set that I won't give away. And yeah, there are some gestures that live within it that feel very intentional, and then some of them feel Like, you know, it just feels right in my body and I don't really know why. And the more time I spend in this work, I understand why. So for me, there was, I'll give an example of the ladder. So there was a gesture of this, which, hold this for a second. It's like a mantra. Within the script, there's affirmations. It's sort of a mantra that's used to like calm myself down, and I was thinking that there were gestures that live within that go with that mantra. And then I realized later that this is sign language for sorry. Take a deep breath. Which informed me of something that I didn't realize I was feeling. Yeah. So sometimes it starts out as very conscious and very intentional. And then sometimes it just feels right or interesting within my body. And Ray is in the audience here, and I know that Ray is like super into like the somatic psychotherapy work, and this has been a therapeutic process for me in that way, to sort of process some different things and shed light on what it is that I actually need. So, and sometimes even when we think we're saying what we actually need, we're offering a visual experience of what we actually need. So a lot of times, in my experiences, I am informed by my own movement, what it is that I actually need. You that a little bit for the
Yeah. I think my response is slightly different, but like in terms of gesture and how that is brought into the process, I love gesture. There's actually not, I don't feel like there's a lot of gesture in our duet. I think there's a handful, like in comparison to other works I have created. Yeah, because I am usually highly gestural in my work. But this one was less about that. I think for me, the reason is that when I was creating the phrase work, which is, I just using 50-50 creation, we were kind of creating separately and then putting them together and seeing how that fit. I was really focused on like what movement feels really good on my body, number one. And two, I had the intention of doing stuff that felt really like big arc swooping. I had this imagery of like ribbon, like reaching fluid. I mean, that for me, I was trying to create stuff that felt like that in my body. So I was thinking less about like what gestures are representing certain feelings or thoughts or words, and more just about like how can I create something that feels like it just swoops and spins and naturally flows. I think that we had a conversation early on where I said that like I'm gonna make this, and she was like okay, and then I think you said like I'm gonna do a little more gestural or something. And that's typically how I work too in my process. If I'm stringing together phrases or creating phrases, I usually like to create like I'm gonna do a gestural phrase, then I'm gonna do a big movement phrase, I'm gonna do something like on the floor. Like I really like to create in variety to have options and then see how that fits together. Which I think that's kind of what we did, but just that's everything. So yeah, I mean, gesture is such an important part of usually what I do in my creation process. I think because I was making it, I was like, let's get that this time. So,
Okay. Yeah, so the second part of that was giving context, excuse me, and you used the word relationship talking with the word solo, and it being more of the relationship itself. And then in the duet, the relationship that the two of you share and have gone on this journey with. You want to speak to that idea of the context, this idea of relationship, and why that's important to you and or an audience?
I mean, I think in terms of the duet, like creating I think we should. This is scary stuff. Sorry. Jamie touched on this a minute ago when she was talking about like the poem and the parallel lines and sort of living your life side by side with somebody that already says like relationship, right? I think that the relationship that comes out to the audience from the duet is I hope that it's clear of these two people, and I hope that it's clear because we're really intentional about creating in like moving in unison for quite a long time. That was purposeful, obviously, and I don't think we knew until we really got to the process like how much in unison that we can move and we can make it look really similar. And that was really important. It's like, oh yeah, because that feels different, like that hits differently. So it looks like, to me, it's like one person, but these are two people, you know. And I think we all maybe have that like relationship with some people in our lives we feel so connected to. You feel like you just be one person, and that's like that sort of unfolded in the process, which is kind of a magical thing, right? But then I don't know. I think the rest of it, I hope that people understand as it unfolds what's happening with these two people on stage and what that relationship is transforming into, what's happening between the two of them.
I always am sitting over here thinking about what am I going to say, and it better be smart. I'm thinking about yes, the duet, but I feel like I have a better answer prepared for my solo. So I'll talk about that.
Yeah.
I think, and I'll start by talking about the sort of the latter part of the question in terms of why it's important. This solo is so like intensely personal for me, and it feels very exposing. And in that way, I think I had a lot of fear about presenting it in terms of will it just feel like this, you know, cry for help, woe is me, bleeding heart on stage? Will it come across in this, I don't know, a way that I typically don't like to be perceived? And so I had a lot of fear about really presenting it. And I think I was surprised by how relatable it is. Even though people may not have had my particular experiences, which are laid out very clearly, I think that most people have experienced this mind chatter that is relentless, and it moves in a direction that can trigger them and can get them very stuck. And I describe it as this spiral down. And having so many people want to talk to me about it, about their experience with it, and how much they could relate to it, and how even though it is so specific to my own personal experience, that they could see themselves in it. And I think that that's why it's important. Early on in my undergrad, I was always really moved by an interview that I saw with Martha Graham, and she had presented her work Lamentation, and a woman in the audience saw it and had never really been able to process her grief. And she approached Martha after seeing the solo and talked about how it moved something inside of her. And I remember thinking, I want to do that. So for me, that's sort of answering that part of why it matters. Aside from it just being a therapeutic process for myself, it is very much about my relationship with myself and my relationship with my mind and my emotions and my fears. And everybody has that. Everybody has their own stuff that they're dealing with constantly, nonstop. And the world keeps going. And in my mind, sort of the context in which this work is presented, I feel like it can be really intense and really overwhelming. And then I'm not going to talk about how it ends, but my thought about how it ends is that this is just a moment. This is just a glimpse into a moment of my life and some of the things that I've been thinking about. And I will say that for my family, it was very difficult to watch. So I've warned a lot of people about it. But
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I'm going to speak to that right
Yeah.
there. I was just going to say, like, as an audience member watching the solo, and I know Amy can attest to this as well. In talking of relationships, the relationship that the performer has to their audience, not only that creation, like speaking to people in the audience in a different way, but to people that know you, family and friends. It was hard to watch in the beginning, right? Like people who are aware of your life and things that have happened to you or who you are as a person. It's hard to take that in, but it also creates like, it's just such a beautiful thing. Now I'm gonna cry and I don't cry. It was really nice to watch in the process, although it was difficult for me. I tried to stay out of the studio when I heard the music coming on. But I'm not gonna go in there. But I mean, I think the first time I actually heard the music track, the audio track, we worked a little bit on that together. And so I'm hearing the recording and I remember like swallowing, going, okay, so we're gonna do this now. This is where we're headed. It should be good. And knowing Jamie and how she creates as an artist, like knowing already that it was going to be something that was going to be impactful. So nothing less than that, of course. But yeah, like that relationship too of something so personal, not just to general audience members, but to like the people that are in your life. I mean, it's really kind of transformed even that and how maybe your family members talk to you about this. Hey, how is that process going? Like, let's have another conversation about it because I maybe did or did not know all these things about you.
that's where they kept coming up for me listening to you speak is this idea of permission and permission to talk about it, permission to question, permission to ask.
We've all just grown up together, so
Yeah, you're all just here on our little adventure. But I know for me, even being in different aspects of it the first time watching it was a little transformative because you know but you don't know. And realizing and recognizing what I didn't know. My question, one of the reasons why I wanted to hear about this work is because I have a personal point of view and perspective. I mean, I think we talked about this the first time. If I can give this away a little bit, you do actually speak individual names in the work. And one of the questions that I had was, I wonder how the audience responds to that. Do we just go with it, or do we ask, well, who's that? Because I knew the names, and so I was curious as to how a general audience who doesn't know you, but just has this background story being so personal, how they're going to respond to that, what questions are going to be moved for them. But I think with most work, it is what is the seed of the work, and I think for me the biggest takeaway is a permission for vulnerability. Just in the same way that we as artists have messages to empower, to make change, all of these things, we also have the power to be vulnerable, to express ourselves personally and make that okay too. That yes, it's a performative process, but it reminds me of my humanity and my humanness, my person, and being moved by the work each time by something different. That's the thing for me. I've seen it 4 times now, and each time I've seen it, there's been a moment of significance. That moment of significance shifts. Like, oh, I didn't see that before, or I didn't remember that happening, or something of that nature. Um, but there is a universality. May not be a word, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It does have a universal essence about it because it is human. And the one thing that we all have in common is that we are human. And we love and we lose. And we celebrate and we hurt. And there's nothing pure, in my opinion, than to be able to not only express that, but then to give permission. To give permission for others and to say, this is okay. It's okay for me to talk about it. It's okay for you to talk about it. And whether you talk to me or not, I hope that it generates conversations for you.
I can speak to a couple of different things was coming up for me hearing you say that in terms of the seed of this being allowance, permission. And if I go back to the very beginning of this, I was working my butt off. Like we do, I was burning out, I was spiraling down, and Jennifer said to me, why don't we take tomorrow? So it started with someone giving me permission to take a moment to feel. And of course, I didn't take any off. No, I did stay home. I said, okay. And I stayed home, and then I just could not sit with it. I could not, I did. I did sit with it, but I created the entire script in one day. And I recorded it that day. And I came back to work the next day and I said, listen to this. Yeah, it was very.
What was that response for you to be able to do that in that one day and to get that out?
And the reason that it happened so quickly in one day is because I went with this spirit of permission. Like I literally started this process in the morning. My brain was going, and there's a list. There's like a grocery list in there. That's actually a grocery list that my husband was physically talking to me while I'm writing things down, and I stopped this process, and he's telling me these 5 things that he needs from the grocery store today since I'm taking the day off. And, I loved him. He's a great man. He didn't know what I was doing. He knows now. His grocery list is in the Word. But I was like, okay. And I'm writing it down. And it just happened to be exactly in that moment when he approached me about it is where it lives in the script. And I just said, okay. And I allowed it. And I gave permission for it to be. The other thing that I will speak to is you talking about how each time you watch it, it feels like you learn something different or see something different. And I think that that might also be because I feel like every time I do it, of course I've rehearsed it and I've sort of crafted little nuanced things that I think, this is what this is, and this is what feels right here. But also, I've started noticing that it is evolving. Those little choices are evolving, and sometimes I'm making different choices in the moment. Sometimes choices are making me in the moment. And I'll also speak to here. When I performed it in dress rehearsal, I was on stage in darkness for a very long time. Before the work started, I think we were working with some technical things, and I could feel, because I start here, and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, and I could feel it pounding in my stomach. And it just kept getting faster and faster, and I started going into my brain, taking over and moving into those triggers, and that was new for me, because I'm actually connecting to the content of this work right now in this moment, and I had to take some deep breaths and calm myself down. So I'm just saying all of this to speak to the fact that the work is still evolving, and I gave myself a year to, take this on tour and perform it however many times I could. But
Who knows where
who knows where it's gonna go? Because
Next.
I'm sort of enjoying where it's gonna go. Yeah. So
I was gonna say in terms of her solo that we've talked about, our intention is to turn it into a dance film, which I'm really excited about. Although that's a little bit nerve wracking because you always hope that you capture the essence of it in the film and that you do it justice, right? But so that it can like live on forever. There's certain works over the years. This will be the second time that we felt like this is so great that we feel like we need to capture this on film so we can just keep sharing it. And I will say that the first one that we did, that I'm still so in love with, Jamie created a stage work called Shelter, and it was so beautiful. It was two of our wonderful former students. It was a lovely duet, and we were like, we love this so much, we can't let it go. And so we turned it into a dance film. This was like, what, 2017 or something. We filmed that in my current house while they were building it before they put any walls up. Like it was just the structure of the house. Literally one weekend, I was like, okay, they put wood up. We have to go now. We have literally like 5 hours to film this entire thing in the middle of this house before anybody catches us. But it's just like the structure of the house and this lovely duet that roams through it, and it felt like very fitting for Shelter, for the duet, being that we're in a place of shelter. And I don't know, I feel like that was such a great experience for us, and like every time I look back on that, I'm like, yeah, we did this really cool thing that I get to watch forever. So I'm really hoping that it's the same for this solo, that we can sort of immortalize it or here's
Yes, and I'm gonna say on the next episode, we can dive into how we transition our words from stage, or how we capture them, or how we immortalize them, because they are ephemeral. They're here. You're never gonna see the same thing twice, and if something captivates you and captivates your audience like that, you want to hold on to it. I'm really excited about the advances in technology in that field of dance film and dance camera, that we are able to capture them. So, thank you both so much for everything that you do and being a part of this festival. Looking forward to seeing you.
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you.